What if the next medical breakthrough could change thousands of lives? Welcome to Moving Medicine Forward, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on groundbreaking healthcare innovations. I'm your host, Jeremy Schrand, and together with CTI's leading experts, we explore the cutting edge of clinical research transforming patient care. Each episode, we dive deep into the stories behind medical advancements, featuring insights from global therapeutic experts who are literally changing how we understand and treat critical disease. From rare genetic conditions to revolutionary treatment protocols, we're not just discussing research, we're highlighting the human stories driving medical progress.
September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and today we're honored to feature two incredible guests who are making a profound impact in the fight against pediatric cancer. First, we're joined by Jill Brink, Executive Director of CancerFree KIDS, a nonprofit organization dedicated to funding groundbreaking research for childhood cancer. Jill brings a unique blend of scientific expertise and nonprofit leadership to her role, and under her guidance, CancerFree KIDS continues to empower researchers and inspire hope for families across the country. We're also thrilled to welcome Dr. Genevieve Kendall, Assistant Professor at The Ohio State University and Principal Investigator at Nationwide Children's Hospital Center for Childhood Cancer Research, a CancerFree KIDS grant recipient whose research is focused on fusion-driven rhabdomyosarcoma, a rare and aggressive pediatric cancer. Her work is helping to uncover new therapeutic targets and develop innovative models that could transform treatment for young patients. In this episode, we'll explore the mission behind CancerFree KIDS, the importance of early-stage research funding, and the exciting breakthroughs happening in Dr. Kendall's lab. Whether you're a parent, a scientist, or someone passionate about making a difference, this conversation will leave you inspired. Let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast, Jill and Dr. Kendall. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Jill, let's talk all about CancerFree KIDS. Can you share your journey to becoming executive director and what drew you to this mission?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, first of all, who can not care about kids with cancer and not want to help kids with cancer in any way possible? My journey, I've been incredibly grateful that I've had wonderful people in my life that have invited me to join in opportunities that have just, been a godsend. And this was one of them. So I spent my entire career has been in nonprofit, mostly on the fundraising side, and spent 12 years at United Way, spent a couple of years at the American Heart Association, really understanding all the variety of ways that people can become philanthropic and can engage community to help drive mission. It just so happens that my undergrad was also in biomedical science. And so when I was at my previous role, there was a volunteer that I had formerly worked with, and he called and he was on the board at CancerFree KIDS and said, "Hey, what's your next step?" At that point, I was a vice president of development and really wanting to continue to grow and build on my career and try to get beyond the development function. And I said, well, first and foremost, it's got to be something around kids. I would love to just continue my own personal career growth. And so he said, well, I want you to meet Ellen, the founder of this great organization. And I think 3 weeks later, I was starting. So again, I think it was one of those things, right place, right time, and right networks and contacts. And he was somebody that I trusted immensely. And it's just become such a wonderful fit and a great opportunity.
It's always very interesting how those networks work, and you've helped a lot of people throughout your career.
It's been awesome. It's been a wonderful, not my plan with a biomedical science degree. You can probably assume that, but I love how it's kind of played out and come together.
CancerFree KIDS focuses on funding early stage, high risk, high reward research. Why is this approach so critical in the fight against pediatric cancers?
Yeah, so we were founded, our founder's daughter was diagnosed with cancer in both eyes at just 6 months old. And it was really through her journey and her care of her daughter that they were seeing kind of just the disparities at large in treatment options for children with cancer. And she, seeked to learn more about why that was and learn that, childhood cancer is significantly underfunded. A lot of that just comes down to economics, and it's not a profitable industry. So you're not getting the R&D investments that you typically would see in adult cancers. There's not a large enough market for that, for patient volume. And therefore, what's left is funding from research primarily comes from public dollars. The federal government, as it probably should be, is risk adverse. It's not one that's going to, invest in things that haven't been tried. They want to see clear proof of concept. And as our founder was working with the leaders at Cincinnati Children's at the time and wanting to give back and do something to help change the paradigm for these children, she said, I want to raise some money. Where should we put it? And it was really at their direction that said, we would love to have dollars to try new ideas, to really get that proof of concept data so that we can go on and be more competitive for those federal dollars and the dollars that are available for pediatric cancer specifically. And so that's what we've been doing for the past 22 years, is funding very specifically in that space.
You mentioned some of the challenge in there, but what is the biggest challenge you face in securing funding and support for childhood cancer research?
I think it's very much aligned with our niche mission, which is people like to know that their investment is going to be something that will make progress too. And without being able to prove that out of the gate, it's difficult to find that funding, to find someone that will just try an untried idea. And I think that's one component. I think there are other components at large in the industry where getting scientists are not also business people. And so trying to also blend the two of getting those all the way through to the bedside, there's challenges in its own right in trying to convene that. So I think that that's a unique role that we can also play, is not only be a funder of the science directly, but where we can provide additional value of partnering with other nonprofits and sharing additional grant opportunities, or partnering with our business leaders who are our donors and allowing their skill set to help in any way that they can. We want to think bigger and larger as we move forward from a collaborative standpoint of how can we rally as an entire community and beyond the check make an impact.
So how do you select which research projects to fund, and what role does your scientific advisory council play in the process?
We have been so incredibly fortunate to have two incredible leaders driving our scientific advisory council for the last, now coming up on 4 years now. We have two co-chairs. One is Dr. Gregory Riemann, and he is currently the director of the National Childhood Cancer Data Initiative out of the National Cancer Institute. And then our co-chair is Dr. Frank Smith, who was the head of oncology when our organization was founded at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. And Dr. Frank Smith was on the ground with us, in addition to Dr. Kripe, who's the chief now at Nationwide Children's Hospital, and really helped form our model and was the one that was recommending where we should invest those dollars. And then he and Dr. Riemann spent 10 years together chairing and vice chairing the Children's Oncology Group, which is really the organization that's helped set protocol across the country for standard of care. So we have two powerhouses, I would say, chairing that group. And as Frank likes to say, no one says no to Greg. So they have built our scientific advisory council for some of the best minds around the country, coming from some of the other top institutions. And so our application is very simple. We try to make sure that, the researchers, we give them time to do the work and not spend it writing grants. So it's a one-page lay summary and a one-page scientific summary where they walk through and go through those grant applications. They score them as the National Cancer Institute would score them, with kind of a quality score. And then we get together and the top scores automatically move forward and the bottom scores automatically get triaged. And then we talk about the ones in the middle and they come together and discuss why they scored the way that they did. And then that goes to our board of directors to have perspective of just from an organizational standpoint, making sure that it aligns all of the funds and the grants align to our priorities as an organization and how we want to invest those dollars, from a kind of how much money is going to new idea awards versus accelerator awards and those type of things. But we're fortunate to have incredibly bright minds giving us that direction as far as where we're investing those dollars.
Can you tell us about some recent success stories or breakthrough that was made possible by CancerFree KIDS funding?
Sure. We have, again, being that seed funder, some of our successes go all the way back to our very first grant. I know CTI has done clinical trials for Vaxion Pharmaceuticals, and we were actually the very first grant that Dr. G got to test his drug in cancer cells. And so that is our very first grant coming out of back to just recently, just this past week, actually, there was an announcement that some of the work that we've invested in the flash proton therapy coming out of Cincinnati Children's is also moving forward and making progress. And that is significant because with flash radiation, it's basically doing it in a microseconds compared to normal radiation, which reduces the toxicity levels for these children, which means they can have more radiation.
And then another grant recipient, Dr. Kendall, is a grant recipient. Let's talk about that, and then we can talk to Dr. Kendall about what you're working on.
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate what Jill said about funding the high risk, high reward research ideas. And so CancerFree KIDS has really, at least in my instance, supported a new collaboration where we had no preliminary data, but we had an idea. It's been really successful so far. So we really appreciate their investment in our work, and we really would have been unable to pursue this with other funding mechanisms. So CancerFree KIDS and foundations are really critical to supporting pediatric cancer research, especially. And I know myself and my colleagues are so grateful for what you all do.
Let's talk about that really great idea that you had.
Sure.
So your lab focuses on fusion-driven rhabdomyosarcoma. Can you explain what that is and why it's so challenging to treat?
Rhabdomyosarcoma is a solid tumor. It primarily presents in children, and it has these features of arrested skeletal muscle development. So these tumors look like they could be really immature skeletal muscle, but they never terminally differentiate. And that's how it got its name, rhabdo. And so the genetics of the disease were really identified over 30 years ago when it was found that there's actually a single mutation that causes these cancers. And as you know, I mean, that's really different from what we see in adult cancer, where you can have hundreds or thousands of mutations. But we have one genetic driver for rhabdomyosarcoma, and it's incredibly aggressive. And we have no targeted therapies for this one genetic mutation. And so you can imagine like the ultimate therapeutic opportunity would be to directly inhibit the activity of this one mutation in the tumor. But that's been a big challenge to date because it acts as a gain of function transcription factor and turns on and off hundreds, if not thousands, of other genes inappropriately. And so the funding that CancerFree KIDS provided us was to use new CRISPR technologies in collaboration with Dr. Maysam Kararudi, who's also at Nationwide Children's Hospital, to really directly target this gene fusion that is the primary genetic driver in the disease. And so we're using different viral strategies to introduce it into cell culture systems and into animal models, directly target the fusion. And so really understanding what CRISPR strategies are most effective, and then what's the most effective delivery system where we can not only target the tumor, but it's a solid tumor. So there has to be, it has to be able to enter a solid tumor environment to be effective. And so there's really a lot of steps that need to happen. But we're really excited because we have had success, especially in cell culture systems, using these CRISPR strategies to inhibit the activity of this one cancer gene. And as you might imagine, the cells all die. So that's, to us, very promising to move forward in vivo and ultimately think about how we can use that strategy to help kids.
It's amazing. So how has CancerFree KIDS grant helped advance the research? You kind of touched on it a little bit there, but
I did touch on it a little bit, but this collaboration did not exist until we got the, request for applications from CancerFree KIDS. And Dr. Karudi and I had a meeting and we said, look, we think this really could have legs. If we got the seed funding from CancerFree KIDS, we could actually test it and see if this is worth moving forward with or not. And so this was really kind of a stop-go grant for us to see whether this is worth pursuing. And based on our results, it is. And we're both very invested in this work. And it helps synergize, I guess, two expertise. My expertise is in rhabdomyosarcoma, and Dr. Karuti's expertise is in CRISPR strategies. And so it really brought us together to work on this together. And you can't do that without funding.
You've identified HES3 as a novel oncogenic target of PAX3 and FOXO1. What does this discovery mean for the future treatment possibilities?
Sure. So we're taking two approaches to develop new therapeutic strategies for rhabdomyosarcoma. And so CancerFree KIDS really supported directly targeting the oncogene or fusion itself. It's a fusion between PAX3 and FOXO1. They both act as transcription factors. Like I mentioned, they turn genes on and off, but transcription factors are notoriously challenging to target. So we've been using CRISPR strategies, like I mentioned, to really inhibit their activity. And that's been successful because the fusion is, of course, not found endogenously in our cells or our genome, right? So it's unique to the tumor-specific cells. But a second strategy is to also look at the downstream effects of what this cancer gene is doing. And HES3 is something I've been focusing on, which is also a transcription factor that the fusion actually induces its expression to tell the cells to tolerate this really toxic oncogene and allow the cells to inappropriately persist. And so there's this really interesting vignette of why these skeletal muscle cancers are co-opting really these neural programs. When we look at them, they look somewhat like skeletal muscle, and now they're changing plasticity into neural cells to potentially promote transformation, becoming a tumor, or potentially evade chemotherapy. And so there's really multiple aspects during becoming a tumor that my lab studies, and multiple strategies that we use to directly target the mutations that cause the cancer or the downstream consequences of these mutations.
So what role do transgenic zebrafish play in the research, and how do they help uncover new therapeutic targets?
Somehow I haven't mentioned zebrafish yet. I really usually we lead maybe.
Yeah, let's talk about the zebrafish.
Somehow that wasn't the first question. No, so my lab uses a cross-species comparative oncology approach. We use transgenic zebrafish systems. We also use mouse allograft and xenograft models. We use patient-derived cell lines as well as patient genomic data. And the point of using all of these models is to find unified success in all of these systems, because we see those as having the highest likelihood of success clinically. So if you are effective in a zebrafish, in a mouse, and in patient cell culture, there's likely a really conserved mechanism that this potential drug or therapeutic strategy is leveraging. So that's what part of the reason we use transgenic zebrafish. Zebrafish are really similar to you and I, although, we look very different. So 80% of disease-causing genes in humans have a zebrafish counterpart. So they develop rapidly outside of the body. So we can look really early on how human cancer genes are interfacing with this rapid developmental context, which is super important when you study pediatric cancer, because pediatric cancer is fundamentally a disease of development. And so there's also other strategies that we use zebrafish for that are more high throughput. So they're small when they're little, and so you can use them as a platform for drug screening. So you can strain hundreds or thousands of fish in a 96-well plate, which is about the size of your hand, with the 96 different drugs. And when you add the drugs to the water, the fish will actually metabolize it, so you can understand how metabolites of that drug are effective and couple toxicity. Obviously, if all the fish die, I might not want to pursue that drug, right? With efficacy, looking at these really early readouts. So they really span the spectrum of basic biology to translational applications. And so that's why it's one of the animal models that my lab uses. And so to study rhabdomyosarcoma, we actually I told you it was driven by a single oncogene. We insert that human oncogene into the zebrafish genome, and the fish will get cancer. They get rhabdomyosarcoma. It looks like the human disease histologically and transcriptionally. We show the histology sections to pathologists, children's pathologists, not zebrafish pathologists, right, to diagnose that. And so it really does have high fidelity to the human system because, of course, I care about kids' cancer, not fish cancer, right?
That's really, really interesting. So I'm going to put this next question out to both of you. What excites you the most about the future of pediatric cancer research, and what breakthroughs do you hope to see in the next 5 to 10 years? We'll start with you, Dr. Kendall.
The field is evolving so fast. It's been really exciting with all of these CRISPR technologies, degrader technologies, and really finding new ways to target really challenging oncogenes that are acting as transcription factors or otherwise. I know how hard myself and all of my colleagues are working, and I'm really hoping that this really evolves into cures quickly for kids, because that's why I do what I do. I know that's why my colleagues do what they do. We want to help kids with cancer. We want cures, but we also want to make the therapies that we use more effective. We want to be able to lengthen the dose, which was what Jill mentioned, or make it more targeted. And kids that undergo cancer treatment, they have an increased risk of premature death and secondary malignancies, and that's not acceptable as well. Hopefully, we want to cure, but we also want to make what we currently use more effective. And so I see that as being a more short-term strategy to complement our long-term strategies of curative.
Yeah, I echo everything that Dr. Kendall said. And I think one of the things that excites me about our work now is exactly what she spoke to around just the innovation that's coming out with immunotherapy, with CRISPR strategies and technology. That is something that has evolved tremendously over the past decade. And so I know recently some of the leaders from Cincinnati Children shared that our dollars can actually go farther now because more can be done because of these technologies. And so, we want to help accelerate this work as fast as we can. We have two of the best institutions in the world doing this work, and we're so honored to help fuel that innovation. And ultimately, to that point, we want to see healthier kids. We want to see kids that aren't getting, standard treatments of care that are decades old. Dr. Roberts was talking about a patient he had that is receiving the same treatment today as he would have received as a child, 40 years ago. And that's unacceptable. That with all of the advancements that have happened in cancer care, our kids should be frontline and center for elevating and accelerating those treatment options, because ultimately they have more years of life than adults do and carry this with them for the rest of their life. So as minimal as we can make those treatments into their long-term survival is so very critically important. And I think that this next age of what we're going to see over the next decade for pediatric care, with continued support and continued investment, can really help drive that transformation.
We just heard an amazing example of one of these CancerFree KIDS grants and the work that it's getting accomplished. How do you measure the long-term impact of the grants that you award?
I think it's also an interesting time. We've been doing this, I mentioned, for a little over 2 decades now, and we really are starting to see more and more progress happen. So I think, basic numbers, we certainly are surveying our researchers annually to say, what additional funding have you received so that we can validate the investment? We know that we have over 114 million in follow-on funding that has been secured with the help of getting the initial proof of concept from the seed funding that we've provided. There are 4 startup companies and even 2 new FDA-approved drugs that have some roots back to some of the funding that we do. And so really, I think that's some of the magic also that happens, is because we have these 2, world-renowned institutions right in our backyard. We're friends. I am at the hospital frequently, and oftentimes we're the first to know when these things develop and get started. And so we certainly measure the nuts and bolts, but I think it's just our relationship, our close working relationship as well. And I think that's one of the things that also is different than perhaps national organizations, is that we can be nimble, and we can, in times of uncertainty, we can adjust our investments and our strategies to align with what is needed most in that world. And I love that about our organization.
So what partnerships or community initiatives have been most impactful in advancing the mission?
We are so fortunate. I mentioned I've been a nonprofit my whole career, and this is my third stop. I have never had a group of donors and supporters that love our organization and lean into our organization more than I see at CancerFree KIDS. Frankly, we are completely privately funded, so we do not have federal public dollars. We're funded by our community. We have fundraising events throughout the years. We have wonderful community partners. Jersey Mike's is a great example of an amazing corporate partner that we've been the benefactor of since 2015 with their Day of Giving. That this past year, they raised over $500,000, which is incredible for, but that takes our community coming out and showing up and standing in a line for an hour to get a sub.
We went. My family went.
Yep. We'll get it into the office. We bring it to the office for everybody.
Yeah, it's incredible. And we have that year round, from Night for the Fight with our high school students to Butterfly Walk with our families. And now we're in our fourth year of the 100-mile challenge, which CTI has been with us from the start on. Seeing that campaign grow and flourish and more of our community out and about wearing Team CancerFree KIDS shirts. I love the community will that's being built with that campaign, which was very much a goal of ours, is to bring awareness to the cause in addition to funding the mission. So those have been, really the most successful. And our celebration of courage has been our longest standing, largest fundraiser for the life of the organization, and people giving generously. Again, it's humbling, honestly.
So let's circle back to the 100-mile challenge. It just started. Explain how it works and what events are coming up that go along with the 100-mile challenge.
So the 100-mile challenge happens during the month of September, and the challenge is to complete 100 miles of activity any way that you choose. So dog walking counts, your daily steps count, your conversion charts for yoga and weightlifting, and really anything, and then raise $100 for this life-saving work. And what we have done is we have kind of two sides of the campaign. One is where companies come together and have corporate teams, and we have a competition, which is why Dr. Kendall's grant is named on behalf of CTI. You guys were one of the grant recipients in 2023. And
thank you.
So it creates this really fun, competitive, because people like to compete, but it also is a wonderful way to, I think, encourage everyone to get moving, which I think we all can appreciate some inspiration and motivation to get moving at this day and age with the busy schedules and whatnot. And then throughout the month, we have different meetups, walking Wednesdays, T-shirt Tuesdays. We encourage our teams to try to get together and do activities to the month. But I love that this campaign can go across geographic regions. So we actually have a company this year that is going globally, and you guys are global. So, you understand that. And I love that, we can have Team CancerFree KIDS across the world. It's been fun to watch it come to life.
How does CancerFree KIDS engage with families affected by cancer?
Our core mission is research, right? And so we meet families at all points in time in their journey. And we have a program called the Courage Program, where we're just offering blanket upon a new diagnosis with a card that says, "We're here for you, we're fighting for you while you're getting better." And we have Courage the Lion that, again, trying to lift up spirit. What we have found, so many of our families kind of come after their initial diagnosis and once their kind of life has stabilized again. But we have events for them, gathering events, thank you events, motivation events throughout the year to celebrate the child's strength and journey. And I think that is a component of every single large event that we have. We have our families there celebrating them and engaging with the kids. And I think the Butterfly Walk in particular is our most family-oriented large event that we have. We have that at the Cincinnati Zoo. The thing that strikes me with that event is it's not just our kiddos that, we have some who've gotten through their battle. We have some that are still in the middle of it, but we also have a lot of families who have bereaved children, and having a family give us the honor to, recognize and remember and honor their child, there's nothing more humbling than being a recipient of their energy and allowing us to help leave that legacy for those children. So that is probably, in my mind, one of the most important pieces is, and we hear from every single family that has lost a child, is I don't want my child to be forgotten. We try very, very hard to make sure that we are always incorporating and remembering those children, and they are just as much as part of our day-to-day as the children and the families who are still with us.
We talked about the future of research. What's the future look like for CancerFree Kids? Any new directions or goals on the horizon?
Our goal is to continue to help make as big of an impact as we possibly can. From a development side of the house, we were born out of Cincinnati, greater Cincinnati region. We are expanding our footprint in the Columbus market as well so that we can continue to grow and invest in even more in those institutions. And I think, as I mentioned, how do we bring more value than just writing the check? So how do we build relationships with other foundations where there might be opportunity for collaborative investment opportunities? I want CancerFree Kids to have the name of if this is research that was funded by CancerFree Kids, it goes to the top of the list when it comes to other foundations that are writing bigger checks and maybe can fund further down the line. And so that's, kind of what I see as our next future is bringing value beyond what we can offer just from the checks that we can write. We also are partnering very closely with the state of Ohio. They have a new pediatric cancer research line item in their budget, and so helping design how they are executing that, we've played a very close role in as well. So I think in the future, it does look more of advocacy. It does look more of like a convener. How do we do this work together? Because no one can do it alone.
Thank you so much, Jill and Dr. Kendall, for joining us today. And everybody get out there and either sign up for the 100-mile challenge or donate to somebody who has signed up for the 100-mile challenge. It'd be really great to help support this wonderful mission. Thanks again for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you guys so much for having us. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. A heartfelt thank you to Jill Brink and Dr. Genevieve Kendall for sharing their insights, passion, and dedication to improving outcomes for children battling cancer. At CTI, we're proud to support organizations like CancerFree Kids, whose commitment to funding early-stage research is helping scientists like Dr. Kendall push the boundaries of what's possible in pediatric oncology. If you'd like to learn more about CancerFree Kids, support their mission, or explore the incredible research they're helping bring to life, visit cancerfreekids.org. And as always, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. Visit ctifacts.com to learn more about how we can help with your clinical trial. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep moving medicine forward.